What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of Sweating Out My Edges, the podcast. I will be your coach in this audible fitness journey. This is Coach Teal, as always, and I'm back. I'm back with another episode, and today's episode is all about Pilates. So for those of you who follow me on my personal social media, you'll know that I probably got into Pilates back in May-ish, June-ish, and I was just fascinated by it. I did a 2-week trial at this Pilates studio here in San Francisco, and I loved it. I loved heated mat Pilates in particular, and I went into Pilates with an impression of what it was supposed to be, and I left with a completely different idea of how I wanted to incorporate it into my fitness program. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, how we can get the most out of Pilates for whatever your training goal may be. So without further ado, let's get started. So I want to get into what Pilates actually is. For all of you who may know, Pilates is named after I think he was German guy named Joseph Pilates. It's either John or Joseph, something like that. I think it was Joseph Pilates. And you know, going around the internet, you will see people say, oh, it was originally developed for a rehabilitation practice for World War II veterans. And it was even more than that. If you go back a little bit further, you'll see that Joseph Pilates had developed this training practice, and he called it something completely different. He called it controlology. And basically his philosophy was that movement should be controlled through a mind-body connection. So using breath with intentionality to put your body in alignment in all of these different types of postures. And that ideology got adapted into the rehabilitation of World War I veterans. And then it also got utilized primarily by dancers who also had this intentionality within their discipline to use breath to put the body in these different types of postures and postural alignments to complete their sport. And so what I realized going into Pilates is that I had a different idea of what Pilates was. And this is my first kind of like issue with Pilates. And you're like, oh, you're not a Pilates instructor. How can you kind of like have an opinion on this? It's because I'm a scholar. It's because I have 2 degrees in exercise science, kinesiology, that allow me to look at it from an academic perspective. And I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I'm going to give you my professional opinion. And what I realized is that Pilates is different from what a lot of people, myself included, thought of when they thought of Pilates, and that is Sculpt. Sculpt has taken over Pilates in a way that I don't think people actually realize, and they're 2 different things. So when I think of Pilates, when I think of classical mat Pilates, and you'll see this differentiated, and we'll talk about that later. Classical mat Pilates uses different postures, uses different holds, and really emphasizes using your breath, similar into a way that yoga does, to control your body movement. And it has a very, very, very strong emphasis on the spine. Sculpt, however, is more about fatigue, and you'll see a lot of different tools used in Sculpt. You'll see dumbbells, you'll see resistance bands, you'll see a ball, deflated ball, you'll see kind of like you'll see a ring, you'll see a block, you'll see all these different tools. And I really think the purpose of Sculpt is to maximize on the fatigue factor. And so if you've taken a Sculpt class, you'll have an instructor, a good instructor. If you have a good instructor, which is a completely different conversation, they will take you through a series of movements that gradually one build upon the other. So maybe you will start in like a bridge. And then that bridge will be slow initially, where you're articulating the spine up and down one vertebrae at a time. And then you'll do more, a little bit faster paced movement. And then maybe she'll say, he or she will say, okay, let's put a band around your knees, or let's hold the leg in the air one for, you know, an 8 count, and then let's hold it, and then let's pulse. And it gradually builds up like that. And what you'll realize is when you're in a Sculpt class, a lot of it is about, okay, is my muscle fatiguing? I'm building muscular endurance. And I've seen this conversation online where people are like, oh, Pilates is not strength training. Let me tell you something. Okay, as a strength and conditioning coach, a lot of different things can be used as strength training. You don't have to be lifting 500, 600 pound weights in order to be doing quote unquote strength training. You can absolutely get stronger doing things like body weight activity. But the conversation I think that people should be having is that it's not a matter of is it or isn't strength training. It's a matter of, is it fatigue versus failure? And so in strength training, you'll see a lot of times people say, okay, you got to, you know, in order to get stronger, you train till failure. And a true failure is when you've lifted a weight and within the last maybe 2 or 3 reps of a very heavy weight, you are not able to lift that weight. You literally fail. You cannot do one more rep. And you give yourself maybe a 10-second break and you come back to it and you still can't do another rep. That's true failure. When we talk about things like fatigue, it's like, oh, I'm holding, I'm maintaining. You're really building muscular endurance, which is a different set of, a different type of fitness. And then you, let's say you can't hold the position anymore, you come out of it, but then 9 times out of 10, you can come back up and you can get right back into it. That's fatigue. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was clearly delineated, because one of the ways that I feel like people are doing Pilates wrong is that people are using it as their end all be all, when in fact, it can be the most transformative addition to your workouts. And I'm saying this from my own experience. So maybe the reason why I got into Pilates was because the heavy weights were just a little bit too strenuous of a workout for me. I used to lift heavy weights maybe 5 or 6 times a week. And, you know, don't get me wrong, the body was banging, but you could only do that but for so long. Especially as you get a little bit older, you have to find different ways to maintain your fitness, especially if you're going for a certain physique, or if you want to continue to maintain a level of physical activity that you can participate in regularly and still enjoy a very good quality of life. But yeah, that split of training, weight training, Pilates, and aerobic exercise, I think is the most ideal combination, especially if you want to be somebody that keeps moving and incorporates variety into your workouts. One of the things that I think leads to a lot of injury, or makes people what they call injury prone, is that they don't change up their workouts enough. So whether it be any one of those forms of exercise, if you do it too often, too vigorously, your body's going to break down eventually. So keeping that variety within your workout routine is something that is going to serve you well in the long run, especially if you want to continue to move well. And again, if you follow me on social media, on my personal pages, then you'll notice that I recently went on a East Coast tour. And so I basically, each city that I went to, I did a Pilates class. What I realized now, I was doing Sculpt classes, but more on that later. So I went to DC, Chicago, North Carolina. I don't think I went to a Pilates class in North Carolina. I could be wrong about that. DC, New York, Chicago, in all of those cities, I did different Pilates class. And you know, I learned something different in each one of those classes. And I'm really glad I did, because the personalities of those classes are so different everywhere that you go. So let's see, I'll start with San Francisco, because that's where I started it out. San Francisco, they're very kind. You know, the instructors are very nice. They're very gentle. And what I realized is even in the heated classes, it's not as hot as a heated class elsewhere, which is significant. So here, the temperature is really usually somewhere around 60 degrees, you know, and cloudy on most days out of the year. And so if you go into a heated mat class here in San Francisco, the highest I think you're gonna get as far as heated mat is maybe like 80 degrees in a class. And again, like I said, the instructors are like not really pushing you. They're encouraging you. They're going to ask you if you have anything going on that, you know, they need to know about, be aware about in the beginning of the class. And I like it for that. It's very gentle. But then I took a class in New York, baby. Again. Nobody told me how intense New York Pilates classes are. And I'm just really upset with the girls, because like apparently everybody else knew but me. I mean, I got into that heated class in New York. Mind you, it's already 90 degrees outside. I got into that heated class in New York, immediately started sweating, like sweat, pool of sweat. And like, not only was I in a pool of sweat, the instructor was so mean. Like, I don't know if she was like mean, like if that's how she is in general, or if that is just like the persona she puts on when she's, you know, instructing a class. But she was intense. Like, she was screaming like, you know, this is body weight, this should be very easy. And I'm thinking to myself, girl, I don't come to these classes to get that type of workout. And that's when I realized that like, this is a Sculpt class, and y'all said it was Pilates, and I'm mad about that. But anyways, it was a lot more intense. The instructor was not giving modifications. I don't even think that she offered or asked if anybody had any, you know, injuries or anything to pay attention to. And, you know, usually during a workout, you know, some instructors will be like, find a modified version. She wasn't offering modified versions. And maybe I should have looked, maybe I got to look again to see if I actually signed up for like an intermediate class. I thought it was beginner, but anyway, so that's neither here nor there, because when I was talking to other people about the class that I took in New York, and they were like, oh yeah, that's par for the course. And I was just like, okay, maybe that's just the personality of the city. So the next class I took, I went to a place in DC, and the instructor, I can tell, was a strength coach based instructor, and very nice. She was very nice. The class was beginner, but I could also tell like throughout the class that based on the level of the class and the level of the participants in the class, I could see her making changes to the workout throughout the workout. And I appreciated that. Not as a participant, because I didn't think her class was that difficult for me, but I appreciated that as a professional, because it showed me that she was really paying attention to the people that were taking her class. Which is really important, again, because the first thing you learn as a professional, or, you know, your foundation as a fitness instructor, is that it has to be safe. So if I am telling these participants to do something and they're not able to do it, I should be able to respond with alternative that lets them leave feeling like they got a good workout, but also challenges them in the most appropriate way. So I really enjoyed that class. And that was at For Pilates. I'm gonna give them a shout out, For Pilates in DC. The last class that I took, I went to Chicago. I took a class at this place called the Soul Room. I want to shout them out too. They were really cool. The place they had was amazing. And this is when I realized that there are levels to Pilates again, because when I went to this studio, not only did they have a dedicated room for mat, They also had a dedicated room to Reformer, as well as the Cadillac, which I had never seen like in person before. And they also had a private instructing room and this studio had all the bells and whistles. Like they had all of the equipment that you would see in any given Pilates studio. And the instructor was very knowledgeable. Because I took the class in like the middle of the day, it was like maybe like noon on like I don't know, like a Wednesday or something. There wasn't that many participants. But she was really good. She was the best mix, I feel like, of everything. She was accommodating. Do you have any injuries? Is there anything that I should know about? Challenging the workout, but also encouraging. So when you are an instructor for whatever type of class, whether it be Pilates, HIIT, in order to keep your participants engaged, it's very important to make sure that people know that they're doing a good job. So not only pointing out, coming around and making those adjustments like, hey, can I move you into the right position? But when you see people doing things well, shouting them out, giving them encouragement. Hey, that, I don't know, that scorpion looks great, whatever. And I think that's also very important and something that they did well. So I think all in all, if you want to do Pilates right, one, you got to find yourself a good instructor, a good studio, one that you vibe with. Because honestly, the New York studio, it honestly wasn't that bad. I think I was so taken aback because I wasn't prepared. It felt like everybody else in the room already knew like what the vibe was. I walked in thinking like, ooh, Pilates, like, oh no, this is Sculpt. Oh, okay, let me get myself together. It's Sculpt. It's like unapologetic Sculpt. It's like you signed up for this. You will suffer 50 minutes. So find the studio that you vibe with, an instructor that you like, an instructor that resonates with you, an instructor that when they give you cues that you're able to make adjustments, I think. And then make sure you know what you're doing, Pilates versus Sculpt versus strength training, and why you're doing it. I would say choose a class that is specifically classical dedicated Pilates if you're looking for a rehabilitative aspect of fitness, which is what I use it for. Because again, when you're lifting heavy weights, when you're banging these heavy weights around, whether it be 3 or 4 times a week, you have to take the time to reset, to let that muscle elongate out, to make sure you are intentional about putting your body in a postural alignment that allows you to, I guess, not develop those type of muscular imbalances that could come from lifting weights. Because it's like, you can't just bang, bang, bang all the time, baby girl. Like, you gotta stretch it out. You gotta let it breathe. And what's great about Pilates too, what I feel like I've witnessed in my own workout routine and practice, is that when you take the time to slow it down and to stretch it out and to be mindful, again, doing that, breath, mind, body connection during Pilates, it becomes almost involuntary. Your body puts itself in that correct posture when you're doing the weights. It makes it that much more easier to, have the correct form. So another wonderful thing I love about Pilates. And then Sculpt, I think Sculpt is very much so appropriate when you don't want to lift weights, but you do want a hard workout. And when you want that feeling of like, you want that feeling of exhaust, like I did it, like I achieved something. You want to get that heart rate up. I think Sculpt is wonderful for that, especially if you can't lift heavy weights. So if you're in a period of your workout where you're just like, I can't squat another 300 pounds. I need to get this feeling of exhaust, but it can't be at that weight. Sculpt, I think, is really, really, really useful for that and appropriate for that. And I think that when you combine those types of workouts with your running, with your strength training, I mean, you can literally be unstoppable and like train your body to be the most capable it can be. But I think I've said all that I could say about Pilates. I hope hope that you're doing Pilates right. If there are any Pilates instructors in the comments, please let me know what your experiences are. Let me know where you're getting certified through too, because another thing that I learned about Pilates is that they are in need of a unifying and governing body. Or if I have just overlooked that, please let me know. But like when I was even looking for my own, I guess, knowledge, because when I'm certified through the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and we have to do continuing education credits like every 2 years, 3 years. You have to continue to like increase your knowledge through different ways. And one of the ways I was thinking about was through becoming a Pilates instructor, because if you get a new certification, that could count as continuing education credits. And so when I was looking like who is the primary governing body in Pilates, I wasn't able to find a definitive answer. So I was just like, I don't want to just become a Pilates instructor through anybody. I want to have the most credible program. And so that's something else about Pilates I think I have a little bit of an issue with. This is like, who's running this show? You know, how do we know that these people are certified and able to instruct, you know, in a true classical Pilates way, and making sure everything is safe and making sure everything, you know, is how it should be. But yes, I keep trying to wrap this up, but I keep talking anyways. I could talk about this for a long time, but yes, maybe in the next episode, hopefully we'll be able to in the future have a Pilates instructor on. One of the things I would love for this podcast to go is for me to start talking to fitness professionals. So if you are a fitness professional and you want to link up, you want to have a conversation, please reach out. I would love to have you on. I would love to increase my own knowledge that way and just give the listeners a different perspective. But for now, thank you so much for listening. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I will chat with you again on the next one.